morning. Good morning.
Are you taking attendance?
Not yet. It's not
Oh, okay.
at 10:30. I'm waiting for everybody to get in the room too. We only got 5 people so far.
Okay, I was just making sure because I just saw that on there.
Yeah.
Do my name, I'm Mariah Walker. Do my name say on there? On this, because I'm using my phone, my Zoom.
Yeah, I see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. When do you put the grades in for like our homework and stuff?
I usually do that once I get everybody's stuff. I'm still waiting on a few people.
Oh, okay.
They should be in today.
Okay.
Everybody's here.
That homework was hard too. I tried to call you, didn't answer the phone.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
That homework was confusing.
It wasn't nothing and nothing.
What you doing? Hey, Mariah.
It was, girl. We was crying. I was crying doing that.
Look, what you doing? So what you doing?
All right.
Man, you stupid.
Okay.
Thank God I have my friend.
Man,
Thank God for her. She knows.
we had each other, boy, because we was, boy.
Good one. Blackberry.
I hope I know some other people are still in his class. I hope they get I'm gonna ask because I log right out as he be going on and on and on.
Yeah, that's why we be late. Like, I left. I couldn't. Because
That's what
he talked too much.
I said it was 10:31. I said, oh, I got to go. Late.
Yeah, he don't understand we have another class at exactly 10:30.
10:30, yep. Hopefully Gina got out of with it because I don't see her in here.
She probably gonna get on in a second.
She's probably still trying to listen to what he's saying.
I'm here. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
He was still going on, Z.
He was just under my name.
Got that.
Hey, Richard, I'm here. I just got on.
Thomas. Okay. Hold on. There we go.
It's Genesis
Genesis.
McPherson.
Yeah. Hold on. Da, 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 da. There we go. And Garrett. Got her. Okay.
I have a question, Sue. Are you gonna be loading any grades anytime soon?
Yeah, I was waiting for everybody to get their stuff in. I'll put them up today.
Okay.
Let's see. Frazier.
So, where did you get the homework from? Because I only found some of the answers through the PowerPoint.
Yeah, that happened with me
He
too.
said we was
Yeah.
I
gonna
only could find some of them.
You have to go back to the lecture and listen to it again.
Why
That's
do
where all
it
the
say,
stuff-
good morning? What do 100% absent mean? What is that? I'm sorry.
100% what?
You got my name. It say absent. Like I'm never in class or something.
Who am I talking to?
Rashia Frazier.
Oh, okay. 10% just means you missed one class.
I did miss a class. I thought it said 100%.
Oh, no. It said 10%.
I ain't missing class, but I'll just talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mark me down and I'm here.
Okay. Who am I talking to?
Nicole Bennett.
Cole Bennett. Okay. There we go.
Shamika Green is here.
Who again? Repeat.
Shamika Green.
Okay, hold on. Green. There we go. Okay.
Erica Ellis is here.
Erica Ellis is here. All right, good.
I'm gonna have a question.
How about Stephanie Beckham? Is she here? Stephanie Beckham. Alex Jordan.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Julia Robinson. Terry Roper. Brooke Ross. Okay. All right, let me.
You may want to give some people a few minutes because I know our last class, the microbiology class, that was asking questions because he finished a little bit late.
Okay.
He finished like right at 10:30.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other way that you can upload the homework besides Adobe?
You mean complete it? You don't have to upload it through Adobe. You can just.
I mean, complete it. Why do we have to? I mean, is there any other way that you can upload it besides Adobe? I mean, well, for us to complete it, like Word, because some of us are having problems with saving it if you don't have Adobe Pro, because that costs.
Well, no. You don't have to get Adobe Pro. You get Adobe Acrobat Reader. That's the free app. That's what I was telling you guys to get.
Yeah, I have that, but when I was trying to save it, none of my things were coming up to say, the answers.
It should.
And I had to.
So it should save it right to you're doing it on a phone or on a computer?
Computer.
Okay.
It wasn't saving for me last night. I had to download the Pro or purchase the Pro.
You shouldn't have to buy anything. Acrobat Reader's free, and Acrobat Reader should save. Make sure that you've downloaded and installed Reader and that you've opened it in Reader. Okay, you have to open it in Reader, not in your browser. That may be what you did. When you open up your document, if it opens inside Google Chrome or if it opens inside Firefox, it's not going to work. You have to open Reader, and then from inside Reader, you have to open the file. Okay, and that may be where the problem is. So open Reader first, then find the file in Reader, and then you should be able to fill it out and save it. That's probably where the problem is. Don't worry if you're having trouble completing it, and if you submit it a little bit late, don't sweat that, because we want to get the Acrobat Reader thing working so that you can send it as an attachment. And the nice thing, of course, about doing it in Reader is that the files are small enough and that the answers are in the places I expect them to be. So that's why I like it to be done that. There's Miss Beckham.
So we can't print it out and write on it?
Well, you can if you want to print it out and write it on it, and then.
Yeah, because I'm the type of person, I gotta have it in my hand, like, so I can study it. And
well, if you want to do that, you can do that, and if you want to send me the picture, you can send me the picture. But you could print it out and write on it, and then if you want to type that in and send that to me, you could do that. It's up to you, whatever you work with best. But like I said, using Reader is the easiest way to send it to me as an attachment. Okay. Again, when you open these files, all right, like this is what a Reader would look like. And if you want to find your file within Reader, you have to have Reader open. I know this is Pro, but it will work the same way with Reader. And you just say File and Open, right? And then you go and you find your file wherever it happens to be. If it's on your desktop or if it's in your downloads or whatever. And then you open it from that window. And then you fill out the form within Reader. And then you go to File and Save and give it a different name. Say Save As and give it a different name, and it should do it. But no, you shouldn't have to buy Pro. Okay. You shouldn't have to buy Pro. Reader is free and works on anything. Okay.
So what book are we supposed to be using for this class?
Well, I sent it to you. Okay. It was in
This,
the first email. The book that I sent is the book that's described for the class. The problem with the book is that the book is really, there's not a lot to it. Okay. Let me find the book for you.
Is it this right here? You look at my screen.
It's like a little pamphlet deal. Yeah. It's real tiny and short. All right.
Oh, I got that book.
And that's why I sent you guys those links to those other 2 nutrition books on Google Bookshelf to use as reference. So you should have got those, and those will have everything in there that you need in terms of nutrition in order to fill out the homework and flesh out your notes. Okay. Because the book that they're using for the course is just a little review pamphlet. All right. And it's a book that assumes you've had a nutrition course already. And that's not the kind of book I think that we need. We need a book that basically shows us everything we need to know first up, because we haven't had the course yet. Okay. All right. So let's save attendance.
Hey, so these books you sent us, are these books free or we got to pay for it?
No, they're free.
Okay.
Mr.
Just link out,
Converse.
it's like checking it out of a library. You just click the link and it opens up the book. I bought the book for you guys. So
Mine says that I have to purchase it.
no, it shouldn't. No, you shouldn't have to purchase it. You should. It's shared to you. You should be able to click on it. It opens up.
When I clicked on the link, also it said that I had to purchase it.
Oh, all right, all right. I got to go fix that then.
It didn't give it for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's at $19 or something like that.
Okay, okay. I'll fix that. I'll fix that because that should be free. What I can do is I can probably get a username and password for you guys so that you don't have to do that. Okay. But that was what I wanted to do with those books, was to give you basically something like you'd get out of a library to help you with the material. Okay. All right.
So can we turn our homework in tomorrow then?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't worry about being late. Don't worry about being late.
I have
I'm
a question
stressed.
too.
Another
What
question?
is, yes, the ATI? I mean, we supposed to, is that homework or something we supposed to fill out? Something we supposed to work on or something, because we don't have no ATI code or nothing.
ATI code.
ATI, yeah. So I'm trying to figure out, because I see that.
Where
That's
you
the
see?
PowerPoint.
Oh, them are PowerPoints?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought we had to fill a form, fill it out or something.
No. Those are just, so these things that I've been sending you, those are notes. Okay. So for instance, I'm going to send you guys right now, okay, the proteins notes.
Mhm.
Okay. So let me do that so that y'all get it at the same time. All right. Let's see here, more. And let's see. See, there's a way to do it in the chat. Oh, yeah. Let me shoot it to you in the email. Here we go. All right. So let's find you. There you go. Send. All right.
When I looked in this book for the answers, I ain't see nothing in there. This little book that you're talking about?
Right. That's why I wanted to get you guys the other 2 books. Okay, hold on.
So this book ain't nothing then, is it?
Message we send.
You see it? Mr. Converse.
Yeah, it's the introduction.
Huh?
Yeah, I know the book you're talking about.
No, I'm saying, so this book right here is like pretty much nothing. We don't need this at all.
Right. It's very limited stuff. Okay. This
Mr. Converse, when I was listening to the lecture, I didn't find any of the answers. Only answers that I found was a 25% and a 38% grams per day for women and men.
Okay. We'll go through it. Okay. Let me attach this stuff here.
Did you already grade the homework that was sent in from those who sent it in?
Nope. Nope. ATA. Nope. Yo.
And you say we was gonna get your back?
Documents. Yeah. And protein. Get back up.
Oh, Mr. Richard, you resending those books out to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's proteins.
And can you talk about this exam we got coming up?
Mm-hmm. And protein homework. Attach. ATA. Cardiovascular. All right. Do this. Boom. Proteins 4. There we go. All right. I think that's everything. Cardiovascular and protein. All right. Vascular. Yeah. Okay. What I'm sending you now are the notes for today. Cardiovascular and protein. There they go. Okay.
You emailing that to us?
Yeah, you're just getting it right now. Okay. And also the protein homework. I'll slide the homework out to you at the break. All right. Okay. We're going to talk about two things today. We're going to talk about proteins, what they are and what they do. And we're going to talk about cardiovascular disease and how you should change your diet when you have certain cardiovascular conditions. Okay. So proteins are the tools of life. All right. Proteins let the body function as a living system because they help with making chemical reactions happen fast enough for our cells and tissues to be able to use what those chemical reactions make. Proteins defend against disease. Proteins provide the body structure by giving cells and tissues shape. Okay. And proteins allow our cells and tissues to bring in what they need in order to function because they can act as gates or tunnels or pumps, and to throw out what they don't need, which acts as a waste product. Okay. Proteins also help us carry oxygen in the blood, and proteins are critical in allowing our five senses to work, right? There are proteins involved in us being able to use the sense of vision and smell and taste and touch. Okay. So proteins do all of that, right? Proteins are also critical in movement because muscle protein allows us to move things around inside the body and also to have our body move and interact with our environment. So proteins are critical. Without protein, nothing's going to work. All right. Proteins contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and occasionally you'll see proteins that have sulfur and phosphorus in them. Okay. Now, they are polymers, meaning they're chains of chemical molecules called amino acids. All right. There's 20 kinds of amino acids that are hooked together by covalent bonds. Remember that a covalent bond is a connection between two atoms that are non-metals that holds them together. But this particular covalent bond is called a peptide bond, and it exists between a carbon atom of one amino acid and a nitrogen atom of the next amino acid. Those are like how the links of the chain hook together. Okay. They contain an amine group, that's a nitrogen containing group, and they have an acid group, and we'll show you where those are. They can act as either an acid or a base. So not only do they do all those jobs we talked about earlier, they also act to help the body's pH stay within a normal range. And they're all identical to each other except for something called the R group. All right. Now, these are the amino acids. All right. And again, this is a drawing that's showing you not every atom, but a lot of them, right? The bends represent where carbons are at. All right. And then you can see oxygens and nitrogens in other places. And what you'll notice is that they fall into three groups. The charged amino acids have a negative or a positive charge at body pH. The polar amino acids have electronegative atoms in their R groups, or we could say that they're amino acids that like to be with other polar things like water. And then the nonpolar amino acids are the hydrophobic amino acids, the ones that don't like to be around water. The essential amino acids are the ones that are in the boxes, the little gray boxes, right? So phenylalanine, tryptophan, isoleucine, threonine. You have to have those in your diet in order for you to have them in your body. The other amino acids can be made from other stuff. The body has the ability to do that. The organs that can do that include the liver and the kidneys. Okay. So where do our proteins come from in our diet? Well, really, all of our nutrient sources contain some protein. but most protein is going to come from meat and from dairy. So from your animal sources, okay? Let's take a look at how proteins are built, okay? And how they're able to eventually turn into a tool that can do a job of life, okay? So let's listen.
Proteins are polymers of amino acid monomers. Every amino acid contains a central carbon atom bound to 1. An amino group, 2. A carboxylic acid group, 3. A hydrogen atom, and 4. A group that differs from one amino acid to another and is represented by the letter R. This dehydration synthesis reaction has created a protein consisting of 4 amino acid monomers.
Okay. So in our cells, that building process happens in a place called the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or in a place known as the cytoplasm. And that's an area of the cell that's outside the nucleus, but inside the cell membrane. And the tool that does that building is something called a ribosome, all right? Once the chain is all hooked together, the chain is going to begin to form a shape. And that shape is the shape in which that tool is going to be able to do its job, okay? So we say that proteins have primary, secondary, and tertiary structure. So let's learn what primary structure is.
Each protein has a unique primary structure, a particular number and sequence of amino acids making up the polypeptide chain. 20 different amino acids are used to build proteins. Theoretically, the various amino acids could be linked in almost any sequence, forming an almost infinite variety of different proteins. This illustration shows some of the amino acids making up the primary structure of a protein. The structure of a single generalized amino acid is shown below. The main backbone of every amino acid is the same. This is what forms the backbone of the polypeptide chain. It is the R group, which projects out from the backbone, that makes each of the 20 kinds of amino acids unique. Different amino acids have different properties that affect the folding of a protein. Thus, primary structure ultimately determines the shape of a protein, which determines its function.
So this is the part where we put the chain together, all right? The parts that connect the chain are the carboxyl group attaching to the amino group of another amino acid, right? So this is a peptide bond, this is a peptide bond, this is a peptide bond, right? And that forms what we call the backbone of the protein. Once we do that, there are other forces that are going to start to make the chain twist and fold into specific shapes, okay? That's what secondary and tertiary structure are about. So this is secondary structure.
In most proteins, parts of the polypeptide chain are coiled or folded, forming twists and corrugations. This is secondary structure. The turns and folds of secondary structure contribute to the protein's overall shape. One kind of secondary structure is the alpha helix, where the chain twists. Another is the pleated sheet, where the chain folds back on itself, or where two regions of the chain lie parallel to one another.
Secondary structure results from hydrogen bonding between atoms along the polypeptide backbone. Oxygen and nitrogen atoms along the backbone exert a strong pull on electrons, giving them partial negative charges, and leaving nearby hydrogen atoms with partial positive charges. These negatively and positively charged atoms are attracted to one another at regular intervals along the chain, causing parts of the protein to twist or fold back upon itself.
After that happens, those areas that have folded up are going to fold on each other. And that's what tertiary structure is.
Superimposed on primary and secondary structure is tertiary structure, irregular loops and folds that give the protein its overall three-dimensional shape. The irregular folding of tertiary structure results from interactions among the R groups of amino acids. Acidic and basic R groups ionize, and these positively and negatively charged groups may form ionic bonds. Polar forces also contribute to tertiary structure. Hydrophilic or polar R groups may hydrogen bond with one another or turn outward and hydrogen bond with the surrounding water. Hydrophobic, nonpolar R groups cluster on the inside of the protein away from water. Tertiary structure may be further stabilized by strong covalent bonds between sulfur atoms in certain R groups.
So what happens in some proteins after the tertiary structure is completed is that they'll buddy up with other protein chains and have what's called quaternary structure. And that's what this looks like.
Some proteins consist of 2 or more polypeptide chains. The fourth level of protein structure, quaternary structure, results from the combination of 2 or more polypeptide subunits. Quaternary structure is stabilized by the same sorts of attractions that stabilize tertiary structure. Hemoglobin, the red oxygen-carrying protein of blood, is an example of a protein with quaternary structure. It consists of 2 kinds of polypeptide chains. 2 of each, a total of 4 chains, make up each hemoglobin molecule.
Now, some proteins, in order to do their job, need extra tools, such as minerals or vitamins, okay? And we call those, if they're minerals, cofactors, and if they're vitamins, we call them coenzymes. Without those extra tools, those proteins can't do their work, and that's why we need them in our diet, okay? So that's why we tell you that you need a certain amount of vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamins A, D, E, and K, and why you need certain minerals. The mineral that works in hemoglobin is iron, right? And how do we get our iron? We get it in our diet. So if we didn't have any iron in our diet, our blood wouldn't have any ability to carry oxygen, and our cells and tissues wouldn't be able to make enough energy to survive, okay? So that's essentially why you eat protein, right? You eat protein in order to break those proteins down into amino acids and then turn them into your proteins in order to make your cells and tissues function, all right? You don't primarily eat protein for energy. You eat it for basically getting building blocks. So what are some of these proteins? What do they do, right? Well, fibrous proteins are pretty long and tough. They don't dissolve real well in water because they're real big. They're stable. They have tertiary and they have quaternary structure, and they provide strength. Examples include keratin and elastin and collagen, okay? And then muscle proteins like actin and myosin, okay? Keratin is what makes nails and hair sort of stiff and hard, right? Elastin is a protein that lets your skin stretch and snap back. And collagen is also found in hair and nails, and it's also found in your bones. And it provides the ability of your bones to resist twisting force, okay? In fact, if you want to do an experiment, the next time you have, let's say, a wishbone handy, okay? Take that wishbone and put it in vinegar for about 3 days, and all the mineral part of the bone will dissolve and only the collagen will be left. And then when you pull that wishbone out, you'll be able to tie it into a knot just like a shoelace and untie it, and it'll snap right back. So that shows you that there is protein in bone, okay? Globular proteins usually have a shape that's kind of round, like a sphere, okay? They have tertiary and quaternary structure. And then they usually have areas on their surface where important things happen. For instance, in enzymes, you'll have a region called the active site where it helps the chemical reaction that it works on go faster. In an antibody, you'll have an area on the antibody that attaches to the pathogen, the germ, in order to keep it from making you sick. Okay. And in the hormone, you'll have an area on the hormone that latches onto the cell that it talks to so that it makes the cell do a particular task. Okay. So the reason that you can make so many things with protein, that proteins are the tools of life, is because with those 20 amino acids, you can put them together in any order, right? And in any length. And that makes it possible for you to build virtually any tool. The information for how to do that comes from a molecule called DNA, and that's where the instructions for building the protein are. Those instructions get transcribed into a molecule called RNA in the nucleus of the cell. And then that RNA molecule moves out into the cytoplasm, and then the ribosome latches onto it and uses those instructions to make the protein. Okay. And so there's thousands and thousands of genes that have instructions, basically blueprints, for building thousands and thousands of different proteins that do thousands and thousands of different jobs. Okay. I don't know if any of you ever worked with Legos when you were little, but a Lego set just has a few basic pieces. And depending on how you hook those pieces together, you can build anything from a cube to the Empire State Building. All right. In fact, there's a Lego exhibit that was moving through the country last year that had some of those examples. And I think you can probably Google it and see what sort of things people built with Legos. And it's the same thing in your body, right? So that information is critical for how to put the amino acids together so they can do all those different jobs. But to have those amino acids, we have to eat them, okay? Now, if we cause the protein to unravel by changing the temperature or the pH or by traumatizing it, then it won't work anymore. And that's something called denaturation, okay? The protein's normal shape, it's called as native conformation. That's the shape in which it does its job. When you denature a protein, you untwist it and it can't work anymore. And what happens if those conditions occur in the body is that those processes that the protein helped happen, they'll stop, right? So if it was an enzyme that made a chemical reaction happen and we denatured it, that chemical reaction would stop. If it was a structural protein that, say, held our bones together and we denatured the protein, then your bones would lose their shape, okay? If it was a muscle protein that helped you move, then the muscle wouldn't move anymore, okay? Sometimes these changes are reversible, but sometimes they aren't. An example of denaturing a protein that everybody has probably experienced is when you fry an egg, right? When you crack the egg, the clear runny part of the egg is made of a protein called albumin. And then when it hits the hot frying pan, it turns into egg white. And that's an example of irreversible denaturation due to heat. Okay. The reason that this is important to understand is because if conditions in our body change in a way that denatures our proteins, we will die. So if our body temperature gets too high or too low, or body pH gets too high or too low, or if our fluid balance in our body gets too high or too low, then our proteins will lose their shape and those chemical reactions and other processes will stop and we will die. So the body works real hard to keep that from happening through a process known as homeostasis. All right. There are some proteins that help other proteins fold up the right way because they're so big and complicated, and they're called chaperones. Okay. So what they do is they help that twisting and turning and folding happen in a way that the protein doesn't end up messing up its normal shape. Okay. There are also stress proteins, which are chaperones made in response to changes in the environment, like low oxygen or high temperature levels. And that helps the cell continue to work when conditions aren't quite the best they could be. And it can also slow down aging by patching up damaged proteins and folding them back up. The reason that this is an interesting function of proteins is that there's a disease that you may have heard of called mad cow. Mad cow disease comes from eating meat that has the mad cow molecule in it. And what happens is that the mad cow molecule is tiny enough to get into your blood from your digestive system. And then from your blood, it gets into your nervous system and gets into your spinal cord and your brain, and will basically melt that tissue into gelatin in a couple of days, and you'll die. Okay. The mad cow molecule is a molecular chaperone that has been folded incorrectly called a prion. All right. And you get it by eating meat that has the prion in it. All right. Most cases of mad cow in the United States have come from meat outside the United States, such as South America or the United Kingdom. Okay. And the reason for that is that when they feed their cows, they add bone meal to their feed. And the bone meal has a high protein content. Unfortunately, the bone meal sometimes also contains prions. And so when the cow eats the prion, the cow ends up getting the disease because the prion can make more prions that make more prions, and that ends up melting the cow's nervous system. Okay. And if you eat meat from that cow, you're going to pick up the same condition. Meat in the United States doesn't have that problem because, due to government regulation, all meat is only grain or grass fed. And so we never have cases of mad cow that come from meat that's inside the US. We do have a problem in the US that is prion related, and it's called mad deer. And the reason we have mad deer is because we've limited deer hunting, and the deer have been increasing their population to the point where you'll find them in places like downtown Cincinnati or wandering through suburban neighborhoods because there's no natural predator that takes care of the deer. The natural predator used to be man or used to be wolves, right? And we don't hunt them anymore, so they breed and breed and breed. And we don't have wolves roaming around the area, right? And so really the only thing that kills a deer anymore is either old age or a car. Well, the deer have wandered out of the woods and have started eating stuff they're not supposed to eat, like garbage and your garden. And in that material is sometimes prion material. Dead animals in the soil leave behind nerve tissue that can have prion in it. And the deer can eat that up when they eat stuff off the ground. And that ends up causing them to get a lot of the same conditions as you see in mad cow. And that's why you'll sometimes hear stories about deer doing things like jumping off highway overpasses into oncoming cars and walking through plate glass windows in the middle of downtown Cincinnati because they have a condition called mad deer. Okay. The fix for this is to allow hunting again to control the deer population so that they stay where they're supposed to be, which is in the woods, and they eat what they're supposed to eat, which is plant material. Now, an enzyme is a protein that helps a chemical reaction happen fast enough for the products of the reaction to be useful for our cells and tissues. If we didn't have enzymes, the chemical reactions that keep us alive would be too slow to keep us alive. So what the enzyme does is it helps the things that are going to react get together in a way that always produces a product and get together and do that quickly, all right? And it does that by doing something called lowering the activation energy, all right? So let's take a look at how this works.
For any reaction to occur, even one that releases energy, some energy must be added to get the reaction going. This energy is needed to break bonds in the reactant molecules. The energy needed to start a chemical reaction is called the energy of activation, EA. This required energy input represents a barrier that prevents even energy-releasing reactions from occurring without some added energy. How does a living cell overcome the energy? The rate of a reaction without being changed into a different molecule. An enzyme does not add energy to a reaction. Instead, it speeds up a reaction by lowering the energy barrier. An enzyme is very selective. Its three-dimensional shape allows it to act only on specific molecules, referred to as the enzyme's substrates. As the substrates bind to the enzyme's active site, they are held in a position that facilitates the reaction. This takes less activation energy than the unaided reaction. Products form and are released. The enzyme emerges unchanged from the reaction. Because of the specific fit between enzyme and substrate, each enzyme can catalyze only one kind of reaction involving specific substrates. Thousands of different enzymes may be required to carry out all of a cell's metabolic processes.
So basically, the enzyme helps the chemical reaction happen quickly enough to be useful. Thousands of enzymes catalyze thousands of different chemical reactions. And enzymes sometimes are just protein, but sometimes they need a tool to help them do their job. And that's where the cofactor or the coenzyme comes in, right? We call the apoenzyme the protein part of the enzyme. And then if it needs a tool that's a metal ion, we call that a cofactor. We get that from the minerals in our diet. And if we need a coenzyme, that's a vitamin. And we get that from the vitamins in our diet. Enzymes are always going to be for a particular chemical reaction, just like a key is for a particular lock. And we always refer to them by the reaction that they make happen, and they end in something called ASE, ACE. So a hydrolase is an enzyme that would use a water molecule to split a chain into tinier pieces. An oxidase is an enzyme that would strip electrons from a molecule in order to give it to another molecule, okay? You can see an example of a hydrolase here, right? This is an enzyme that does a dehydration synthesis reaction. So this is the kind of thing that would happen, say, in a ribosome. Two amino acids bind an active site. They form something called an enzyme substrate complex, and then the enzyme helps them hook up by stripping out a water molecule, and then it lets go of the product, and then the enzyme can go back to the start and repeat the process over and over and over again, okay? This is an example of an anabolic reaction, a reaction that builds a large molecule from tiny molecules. So this generally requires energy from another source, and that source is going to be ATP, okay? Now in our diet, we have different types of protein, right? Complete protein, which has all the amino acids we need to survive, comes from animal sources and soy, and contains all 9 essential amino acids. Incomplete protein comes from plant sources and contains all 9 essential amino acids, but one or more of the amino acids isn't adequate for us to make all our proteins. And then complementary proteins are foods that are incomplete proteins if you eat them by themselves, but if you eat them together, you end up getting complete protein. Okay, so an example would be red beans and rice, right? That contains complete protein. Those are 2 different vegetable groups, right? The beans are legumes and the rice is a grain. And when you put them together, you get all the protein you need. But if you were to only eat beans or only eat rice, you would be missing some of the amino acids you need to build all your proteins. And so you wouldn't be able to build all the tools of life and your health would suffer. Okay. Proteins have a lot of metabolic functions. They do tissue building and maintenance. They control the balance of nitrogen and water. They create backup energy. They support metabolism. They control our nitrogen balance and our transportation of nutrients. They support the immune system. 3 factors influence the body's requirement for protein: whether or not we're doing tissue growth, the quality of the protein we're getting, and added needs when we're sick. Okay, so if we're rapidly growing, we need more protein. If we're sick, we need more protein because we have to repair stuff that's damaged due to the injury, and we also have to make proteins that defend against disease. All right. The quality of the dietary protein will matter, right? If we're not getting complete protein, then the body's going to need more, right? The recommended daily allowance for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram for healthy adults. Protein's acceptable macronutrient distribution range, called the AMDR for adults, is 10 to 35% of your total calories. So in a day, if you're eating 2,000 calories, right, at least 10% of that, 200 calories, should come from protein. Underconsumption can lead to protein energy malnutrition. Examples of this are kwashiorkor and marasmus, where we lack protein in our system, and so our body starts to feed off of our connective tissue and our muscle tissue. Okay. Vegan diets can sometimes run into problems because they don't have complete protein. They can also run into problems because they don't have B12, because that doesn't naturally occur in plants. That comes from our meat and our dairy. And proteins are last place in the energy sweepstakes because they provide 4 calories per gram of energy, right? Remember that the energy champ is lipids, followed by carbohydrates, and then protein is in last place. So this is an example of an individual with kwashiorkor, right? The reason this individual looks this way is because there's very little protein in his diet. Okay, and so what the body's doing is feeding off of the muscle tissue and the connective tissue in the body in order to continue to make protein, but that's not something that's sustainable, right? That can't go on forever. Generally, these people have edema, especially in the abdominal region here. You can see the swollen belly, and they have hepatomegaly, which means a big liver. Okay. Now, why is this? Well, albumin is a protein in the blood that helps the blood hold on to its fluid volume through a process called osmosis. And if you don't make enough albumin, you lose fluid to internal body compartments like your abdominal cavity. Okay. And that's why you see this swelling, because of fluid accumulation here. The reason that the liver gets real big is because the liver is trying to make amino acids that you need from body tissue. So it's working really hard, and the result is that it swells up. okay? You also see a similar condition in people that have cirrhosis of the liver. In cirrhosis of the liver, what happens is that the liver is damaged due to alcohol consumption, which produces byproducts that are a lot like formaldehyde. And if you've ever been around formaldehyde, you know that it's a preservative, right? So what it does to living tissue is that it kills it and it kind of pickles it, right? So it doesn't decompose, but it also doesn't work anymore. And if you don't have enough functioning liver tissue, what happens is you can't make albumin in the blood for you to hold on to your fluid volume in your blood and maintain your blood pressure and your blood volume. And you end up leaking fluid into the abdomen. And so you'll get this characteristic appearance of the swollen abdomen due again to fluid loss, okay? Now the fix for things like kwashiorkor and marasmus is to add protein back to the diet, okay, whatever way you can. The fix for something like cirrhosis is to quit abusing alcohol and recreational drugs and let the liver recover so that it can make the proteins necessary for your blood volume and your blood pressure to be maintained, as well as the other proteins that the liver makes. The liver makes proteins that help us battle disease in addition to holding on to the fluid volume in our blood. Okay, so it's a major producer of plasma proteins. And when you lose liver function, you lose that ability. You also end up bruising and bleeding very easily because you lack the proteins needed to make a blood clot. Okay, so all of this is critical, and it points out how important protein is in our diet, right? Protein can do all of these jobs because, again, you can build almost any tool out of the amino acids that make up proteins, okay? With that, let's take a 15-minute break, and we'll come back at 11:45, okay? So let me put that up here so y'all can see it. Here we go. That and 11:45. Whoops. So, there we go. Okay. So I'll see you guys in 15 minutes.
Dog. I want to just get it over with. I don't need no break.
You need to.
Just drag along. Are y'all prepared for y'all test?
As prepared as we're gonna be.
I'm very prepared for my test. No, I'm lying like a mug. Willie, you trying to show us your muscles?
Nah. Chilling.
Huh?
I'm just chilling.
What's up with this study group, y'all? Anybody?
And we gonna meet later.
Yeah, but you sound like a more people.
How y'all doing the study group?
I ain't know about no study group.
That's what that's what we've been talking about in
the group.
His Paula class.
I think that I know y'all made it official. I just thought y'all spoke on it.
Well, 3 of us got the same class, so
help me
same lab.
Tell Maya to help you. Ask Maya and say, please.
Are you?
Are y'all doing a
Yeah.
study group for this class, or are y'all speaking about another class?
Any class, to be honest. But what I was saying,
I'll help you.
3 of us is in the same lab class.
We got the same
So we just
classes
been
and the
going
same
from there.
lab.
Huh?
I said, I was telling her we got
I
the
gotta
same
fix it. I
class.
was helping my hair, baby, here.
Did
Hold on, let me
anyone
take-
find the answers to the previous homework in the lecture?
Yeah.
How many times did you have to listen to the lecture?
It wasn't in there.
It wasn't. Yeah, it definitely.
So where did y'all find the answers at? Because I didn't find anything.
Me either. Google stuff.
Send me your
Google and a book.
Right.
It was
Send me your
hard.
email address. I'll send it to you.
Who you talking to?
You, Brittany.
Who is that? Who? I don't know who's speaking.
Gina.
I ain't got.
Gina.
Say Nina.
No.
No,
Gina.
no.
Ooh.
Why do you keep playing in my? Oh.
Hey Gina.
Huh?
Did you get my text? I mean,
Let me look. Right though. But send me your who need them?
Hello.
I do.
This Alex.
This Brittany. I need everything.
Okay. Go in the chat and send me your email address. Just send it to
Just
me.
put it in a group. I'm about to say, just take a picture of it and put it in a group. That's what I did.
I don't know how to put it in the
Okay, wait. I just took a picture of my stuff and put it in there.
I'm just putting my number in the chat.
Okay.
How about that? Oh, it's sent
Yeah,
to
that
you.
homework was hard. It took us a couple days to get it done.
Man.
At least 3 days.
It's like the stuff he was trying to get out of us is not in the book. It's like we got what, 3 books? Man, it was hard.
It was hard as fuck.
Super
He's
hard.
now. Well, none of that stuff in the book. Everything he talking about, it was in the PowerPoint or the lecture. No, it was not.
That shit
It
was hard
wasn't.
too. Still found shit. Here, you need
First
to
of all, we just got the lectures, what, a couple days ago?
That shit was hard as fuck.
It was.
So how did y'all find it? Because I can't find it either.
And Google. We just like Google some of the
That's
stuff.
what I figured. I started doing that too because I was left with no option.
Yeah.
And your email address and your number. I send it to.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mommy,
Hmm.
he came by my toys today.
Boy, leave me the fuck alone.
Don't beat him up.
Can you send it to me too?
Yeah,
Just send your number.
Here. Look.
Oh,
Stop
that's
playing with
Brittany.
this
Hi,
shit on my
Brittany.
fucking floor. Stop,
I'm like,
stop,
who is
stop,
that?
Stop. Because you're getting this shit all over my damn floor.
I don't know about this class.
Man, you hear me? I don't know.
I was gonna
either.
ask, can I drop it? But we can't drop no classes, can we?
No, you gonna have
It's too late, I think, to drop.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, but it might be passable though. You only need a 70% for this
is.
class.
No, I thought they said we needed 80.
Oh, you need a
80 for all
70%.
of them.
80,
No.
80.
For this one too?
Yeah, all our classes.
All
And I'm trying to make the honor roll.
It says
Yeah,
70 on the
I'm trying to make
syllabus.
honor roll too, but I'm at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I just need to pass.
But a 70 is a fail. That's an
On,
F.
on his
Yeah, you
syllabus,
need
it says 70 to pass.
I would add, because they said I thought it was an 80 for all the nursing classes.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, I think it's an 80.
But I might be wrong, but when I read his syllabus, it says 70%.
It says 70, but I think that this is part of the nursing.
I'm about to look.
Oh yeah, so we really need to just come together.
So how long y'all been in this program?
Yeah, he said it's
July.
It say 70 to 79 is a C average. 80 to 89 is a B average.
But for his class?
For his class, but we need to
and a 70
is a nursing class though that we need. We need to see
the nursing and the microbiology, you need an 80.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did I say that at?
On the syllabus?
I think that's all classes.
On his syllabus? Oh.
Because even our like med term and stuff like that, you still needed a 78, like 79 to pass.
I need to.
Dang on computer keep going crazy, like blurry.
So y'all started this program the 29th of June.
Yep.
Yeah.
My birthday.
Yep.
I wonder why I ain't in no other classes with y'all.
Who is this talking?
Doing LPN or RN?
Huh?
LPN, Brittany.
Okay.
Okay.
Huh.
You ain't in you ain't in what other classes you got?
I just got one other class, and that's the STNA class.
Oh,
that's probably why, because she got to take your
SPNA.
SPNA.
Yeah, you gotta. I think
you got to take that before you can get into the nursing.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't let me account my my medical assistant. I'm a registered medical assistant.
You got your SCNA license?
No, I got my.
That's why. That's why. You gotta have your SCNA license. So like.
That's but that's like the same thing. Shit.
It's the exact same. If you're in the hospital, it's the exact same thing.
It's not really the same thing because a medical assistant do more than what a STNA do.
I mean, they do, but I'm saying it's still in the medical field. They should have let her just go ahead on with
she
that.
don't take your care
Hospital,
like
they
us.
consider you could be
They
considered
consider you
a medical
CA, but they
assistant.
don't consider you a STNA because you still have to take like
Care. It's the patient
course.
care. It's the care of the patient.
Yeah.
That's why they want her to. That's why she got to get her STNA license because she got to take care.
At UC, I could transfer my MA to a PCA if I wanted to switch.
Because then when you do that, then you're gonna be trained as a you're gonna be in the training as a PCA. You gotta have a because at the hospital you can have an STNA and be a PCA, but you don't have to have your STNA to be a PCA. You get on the job training as a PCA. It's called PCA. It's a program. That's why. That's why.
So do I have to sit and take the state test to be a STNA in order for me to proceed in the LPN program?
I don't think she
do have to.
Oh wow.
I don't know.
It's a requirement.
No, you don't have to take the
saying,
test. You just gotta take the class.
Yeah.
So you
I
take
took the class, but I don't have to take the test.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Brittany, so is they gonna make you take the sit for the boards for the STNA like that?
I don't know. Cause I thought I just had to take the class.
Oh, okay. Not the board. I didn't mean to say the boards.
I'm about to slam choke you.
Somebody about to get it over there. I hate to be them.
Me too. What the fuck is you doing?
Oh wait, I can't wait for this class to be over.
That's why I should have took you to daycare.
You sound like me because Aubrey is.
Girl.
Y'all see her. Look, y'all see her out here trying to eat stuff I see. My stuff I see.
I got your Toy Story candy. You want your Toy Story stuff?
I still don't understand the atoms and molecules and.
That's easy. Like all of that is once you. It's easy because I took anatomy, so it's all anatomy. It's like it ain't.
Mm-hmm. And then
I
we
just don't understand why we doing it.
Some of the stuff that he was talking about, we was just listening to it in our microbiology class.
Yeah, I didn't take my microbiology, but I took anatomy. But I don't see how the when he's showing us the outside and the inside and the nucleus and how he get from 2 to 8. Because when I'm counting them, I'm getting more. I just don't get it.
I want to. It's just when I'm saying you just gotta take the test. Let's hope we can get some good grades. Cause I don't get none of this shit. I ain't gonna lie.
I still got questions on the not the final, but the project that's due at the end.
The disease project.
That's easy.
That's the easiest thing. That's real easy.
That's the easiest thing.
Research. All you doing is looking up what disease you want, and what you pick, and then the
side effects, symptoms, and stuff like that.
The diagnosis. Oh, then we gotta write like a nurse intervention, like that.
Raven, did you start first yet?
No.
How many classes y'all taking at one time?
3.
It feel 3 too many.
Too fucking many.
Like we be focused on the nursing part. Like these 2 classes, I don't know.
And we got clinicals.
Yeah, we got clinicals, and then we got a
lab.
Yeah, we got to focus on that and shit. So with the disease project, you just gotta name the disease, define the disease, the signs and symptoms, the dietary requirements, the nursing interventions, and the special considerations. For example, like lab work, testing, procedures, exercising, or counseling. Then you gotta create a meal plan, for the disease, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then you gotta um then you just gotta reference all your work, like do a, what is it called? Site paper. Not a site paper, but where you get all your information and then you gotta put it all in the paper form, I guess.
Reference.
Yeah, reference paper. Well, it ain't called reference, it's called something else. I don't know what it's called. But yeah, and then you gotta type it up like a paper. And then he grading for being on time, follow directions, content, meal plans, and that's it.
He sent all that out. He sent the paper out. You just gotta print it out.
Yeah. It ain't hard. It's easy. Just time consuming. That's the only thing that I get because I don't get shit. I don't understand.
You know what? This project you can do like in one day. It depends on what
Yeah,
you're
that's
doing.
why. Mm-hmm.
Everyone in here taking the LPN or the RN?
LPN.
LPN.
Oh.
Hey, did y'all see grades for yesterday's test? For the clinical test yesterday? Anybody get a grade yet?
I ain't checked.
I haven't seen anything so far.
Did y'all have to for the test? Did y'all have to write out 3 questions? I mean, write your answers out for 3 of the questions and send them to her?
Yep, I did, because there wasn't no space in there to write in the answer.
Yeah. Did she text you back?
Yeah, she texted me and said she got it.
Okay.
Because I had called her while I was taking the test and said that I couldn't answer it. So she said just text it. And
I guess we go ahead there for Friday class tomorrow. That was for y'all Wednesday class?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't got the Wednesday class with, who is this?
This Tawana.
Yeah, you don't got the Wednesday class with us, do you?
No, I got Friday.
I wonder why. I was like that. Yeah, y'all gonna take a test.
What kind of test is it?
It's over the chapters, but you gonna have to write out. I don't know. She might fix y'all because our class was messed up. Our test was messed up, so she might fix y'all.
Y'all did it on ATI or it was one of her tests?
Her test. We ain't got the code for the ATI
Oh, okay.
yet. We gonna
So
be
what is
behind on
on?
that. We gonna be so far behind by the time we get our password.
So what was y'all test on?
The chapters, chapter 3. Was it chapter
Oh.
3? No, that was for that's microbiology.
Yeah, she gave me a 0 for the first test because my internet went out. Like,
She gave you a 0.
yes, bro.
So what chapter we got what chapter is it?
21,
Is
14,
it 13,
13, 14, 21.
21?
Oh,
It
Yeah.
was
it
easy
wasn't
though,
no
cause
$14.
It's only 10 questions, or 10 or 11 questions. Chapter 3 was microbiology. I was thinking about microbiology. We got to test on that. But 13, 14, 21.
Not no 14.
Mm-hmm. 13, 14, 21.
12, 13, and 21, right?
No.
it start next week. She ain't playing with nobody.
That's what she said.
Y'all gonna get the Shay. I about to get the real me because I ain't playing with nobody. I said, oh boy.
Then she was like, cut your cameras on. I
Oh,
mean,
y'all don't made Miss Paula mad.
She pissed. She pissed we ain't take up for her.
boy, she said, y'all gonna get the real me next week.
All right, y'all, we're back.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So this is a discussion on cardiovascular disease. Now, your cardiovascular system is important because this is how we distribute nutrients to our tissues and oxygen to our tissues. And that allows our body to continue to make energy and to continue to building the tools necessary for the body to function. We need the oxygen in order to make enough energy for the building process to continue, right? And we need the building blocks, obviously, for putting together the pieces of the body that function, right? And blood is the delivery system. Blood also helps to remove waste products from those processes so they don't build up to the point where they get toxic and they kill our cells and tissues. The cardiovascular system also defends against disease because it contains white blood cells that battle pathogens like viruses and bacteria and fungi and parasites. And it regulates our body temperature. It also controls our body pH. And it regulates, again, the fluid balance in the body. Okay. So it's just as important that we get the goodies to our tissues as for us to remove the junk. And that's how we do it, right? It works in connection with the respiratory system and the digestive system to do those things. Okay. Now, coronary heart disease is a problem in which we cut off blood flow to the heart itself. Okay. Now, the heart is the blood pump, right? The blood pump is how the blood gets around the body, right? The heart has 4 chambers. The 2 chambers on the top are called the atria, and the 2 chambers on the bottom are called the ventricles, okay? Blood flows in to the atria on the right side from the body and on the left side from the lungs, and then it goes from the atria to the ventricles, and then the ventricles squeeze the blood, and on the right side, that blood goes to the lungs, and on the left side, that blood goes to the body through the aorta. The heart gets its own blood supply from this big blood vessel called the aorta, from what's called the coronary arteries. You can see the right coronary artery there and the left coronary artery there, and they carry blood to the heart so that the heart can continue to pump the blood all the time, right? Because the blood has the oxygen and the nutrients that we need. So if you block these vessels and you cut off blood supply to the heart itself, that can cause something known as a myocardial infarction or a heart attack. Okay. The reason this can occur is because when the heart pumps blood around the body, that blood can contain things like cholesterol, all right? And the cholesterol can form plaque in the arteries that can jam in the arteries and prevent blood flow to everything downstream, all right? But it can also collect on the walls of the arteries and increase the overall blood pressure. And the risk then is that you could actually pop a blood vessel and cut off blood from everything downstream. And if that happens in the heart, that's going to cause a heart attack, okay? Heart muscle tissue doesn't regrow. So if you kill it by having it out of blood for more than 2 or 3 minutes, then it doesn't grow back. You end up with scar tissue after that, and the heart is permanently weaker. And as a result, has to work harder to get the blood pumping around your body. The other thing that happens with coronary heart disease, okay, is that you end up usually with obesity as an additional risk factor. And when you're putting on extra weight, your blood vessels get longer. And when your blood vessels get longer, the pressure in the system gets higher because the heart has to pump harder and faster in order to get the blood around all that extra distance. Okay, and that causes hypertension, in addition to the plaque deposits that come from atherosclerosis. And so that puts you at risk of blowing a capillary bed in the brain, which can cause a stroke, or blowing capillary beds in the heart, which can cause a heart attack, or doing that in the lungs, and that can cause something called a pulmonary embolism. So that's bad all the way around, all right? The reason that we have such a problem with cardiovascular disease in the United States is that we have a diet that is very high in calories, but doesn't make you feel real full. So we would say it's low in satiety. And as a result, it's easy to eat a lot of calories and absorb a lot of fat and not feel full, right? And then you eat more, and that packs on even more calories and end up with even more fat. And the result of that can lead to atherosclerosis and hypertension and an increased risk for a heart attack or a stroke. The way that cholesterol and other fats get around the body is through little vehicles called lipoproteins. They look like little bubbles, and they have cholesterol and phospholipid and protein in them. And then inside them, they have whatever they're carrying, which could be a fat-soluble vitamin or some other type of lipid. Okay, high-density lipoprotein is called good cholesterol because it removes cholesterol from the blood and takes it to the liver, where the liver will deal with it, okay, either by storing it or by turning it into something that can dissolve in the blood so that the kidneys can get rid of it, okay? The other cholesterols, the LDLs, the VLDLs, and the chylomicrons, those are bad cholesterol, okay? Because that means that you're bringing cholesterol out of the liver and into the circulation, and that's how you're going to promote coronary artery disease and cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis, okay? So you want levels less than 130 milligram per deciliter of blood in order for this to be optimal, okay? Your total cholesterol should be less than 200 milligram per deciliter, and you should keep your triglycerides low too, okay? Now, what are some of the risk factors, right? Hypertension, which is a blood pressure greater than or equal to 140/90 if you're under the age of 60, and greater than or equal to 150/90 if you're over the age of 60. Now, your blood pressure necessarily rises as you get older, because the older we get, the stiffer our blood vessel walls get and the higher the pressure gets inside them. And that's just because of years of use, okay? But you can make this much worse by having a diet that's high in cholesterol and saturated fat, okay? Essential hypertension, it says here no clear cause, but the cause is actually your lifestyle, right? Your diet and your exercise routine are going to determine your body weight, right? And if you put on bad weight, which is body fat, then you make those blood vessels longer and you deposit those plaques and your blood pressure goes up and your heart has to work harder, okay? And what can sometimes happen is that you can get so heavy that the heart can't generate enough power to pump the blood around the body because there's too much resistance, there's too much pressure in the system. And that's called congestive heart failure, okay? So that's a different type of heart failure. That's where the heart literally can't get the blood moving, okay? When we plug the coronary arteries, then we have the death of heart muscle tissue, and that's a myocardial infarction. That's a heart attack, okay? So there's two different ways that you can hurt your heart by being obese, right? Secondary hypertension is usually the result of medications or problems in body systems like the urinary system. And to treat that, what we do is that we treat the underlying problem, right? If there's kidney disease, we deal with that. If you're on a particular medication, then we change the dosage in order to deal with it, okay? Again, you don't want blood pressure that's high all the time because you run the risk of popping those capillary beds. The capillaries are the tiniest, most delicate vessels that let the blood flow into the tissues and let the tissues get the nutrients and the oxygen out of there that they need and to dump off the waste products that they don't want, right? So there's a lot of capillaries in the body. There's so many, we don't even name them, but they can't take a whole lot of sustained pressure. And that's why hypertension is bad for them. All right. Now, we pointed out the fact earlier that nutrition labels can mislead you, right? Nutrition labels will give you calories per serving, but not calories per container. And this is one of the things that trips us up when we plan our meal, right? Because the rule of thumb is 2,000 calories a day for an average individual. And if you go over that, you're going to gain weight. And if you go under that, you should lose weight, right? So the kind of things we can do to control our body weight are our activity level and our diet, okay? So those are called the modifiable factors, all right? What you want is a good cholesterol profile in your blood. You want high HDL, okay? You want low LDL and VLDL and chylomicron. You want low saturated fat, right? You want to reduce your hypertension. It can also reduce type 2 diabetes, right? By reducing the number of calories you take in and increasing your exercise regimen, then you make over time your body more sensitive to your own insulin. And the result then is that you're able to pull the sugar out of your blood and use it for energy instead of having it build up in your blood and your urine and causing problems like hypertension and ketoacidosis and the death of nerve tissue. We call that diabetic neuropathy, all right? Early onset blindness, the loss of fingers and toes. All these things are problems in people that have type 2 diabetes, where you become insensitive to your body's own insulin, okay? So that's all stuff you can change, right? You can increase your exercise level and you can reduce the number of calories you eat. I think I pointed out before that if you go high protein, high fiber, that's a good way to feel full, but not to take in lots and lots of calories. What can't you change? You can't change your age or your gender. You can't change your genetics, right? Risk factors, old age, being male, and a family history of heart disease, okay? Those are all going to indicate that you've inherited something or you're at a time in your life when you're at a higher risk, okay? So the fix in order to at least reduce the problems from these non-modifiable factors is to, again, increase your exercise and reduce the number of calories you're taking in, okay? So coronary heart disease is a block in the coronary arteries which supply blood to the heart muscle itself. And then the heart muscle tissue dies and doesn't grow back, right? In heart failure, the heart can't maintain adequate circulation, all right? And what you're going to see there are conditions that exacerbate it, such as fluid retention and excess sodium. So you're going to have fluid start to build up in your tissues. For instance, in people that are heavy, okay, you'll sometimes see swollen ankles and wrists because the fluid leaks out of the blood and into the tissues due to the fact that the blood vessels have gotten longer and there's more pressure in the system and thus more resistance. And an MI is, again, a blockage of oxygen delivery to the myocardium, okay? And so what happens is that part of the heart dies. So that part of the heart wall can't do any blood pumping anymore, and it doesn't grow back, okay? So how do we deal with this? Low fat, low cholesterol, all right? The TLC diet is one approach, and the link is there. High fiber, more exercise, manage your weight, stop tobacco use, reduce alcohol use because there's a lot of calories in alcohol as well, okay? Daily intake of cholesterol, less than 200 milligrams, saturated fat, less than 7%. How do you do that when you cook? Trim the fat from your meat, remove the skin, broil, bake, or grill instead of fry, right? Because when you fry, you know you're going to be using oils or lard, right? Use spices and low-fat dairy products. Use plant-based oils because they have less calories in them. Increase your fish intake, such as tuna or salmon, again, because the oils in tuna and salmon have less calories than the fats that you're going to get from animal products, your meat, your dairy. Get help from your family and your friends in order to stick to this, okay? Because it's going to mean a change in what you're eating, okay? You have to adapt. Metabolic syndrome is the result of a collection of risk factors. An abdominal obesity with a waist circumference of greater than 40 inches in men and greater than 35 in women. Triglycerides greater than or equal to 150 milligram per deciliter. Low HDL, less than 60 milligram per deciliter. In men, less than or equal to 40. In women, less than or equal to 50, okay? Increased blood pressure and a total lipid amount greater than or equal to 100 milligram per deciliter. So basically what you have is too much cholesterol and saturated fat in your blood. And the reason this is a risk is because this leads to hypertension. This increases the risk for cardiovascular disease, okay? And it turns out that the adipose tissue actually produces hormones that also raise your blood sugar, like cortisone and cortisol, okay? Women tend to deposit fat in the hips and the thighs because of the higher estrogen levels. Men tend to deposit fat in their belly because of the higher testosterone levels, okay? So that's why the difference in the waist circumference, okay? So let's take a look at hypertension.
Hello, in this video, we're going to talk about hypertension or high blood pressure. This is an overview and introduction. Hypertension is defined as blood pressure of 140 over 90 millimeters mercury or greater. The main goal of treatment is to decrease the risk of mortality and of cardiovascular and renal morbidity. The signs and symptoms of hypertension include headache, dyspnea, high blood pressure, possible retinopathy and visual changes, chest pain, and sensory or motor problems. There can also be signs of end organ damage due to hypertension if the hypertension is untreated and severe. We will talk about end organ damage towards the end of the video. So what is blood pressure? Well, it is the product of cardiac output and the total peripheral vascular resistance. So here is a heart pumping blood out. This is the cardiac output. And together with the total peripheral resistance, makes up the average blood pressure. Risk factors for hypertension are obesity, high alcohol intake, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, high sodium intake, sleep apnea, dyslipidemia, old age, and family history. Hypertension can be a disease in itself, or it can be secondary to another condition, an underlying disease. Let us look at the differential diagnoses. Hypertension can be categorized as primary, also known as essential hypertension, or secondary hypertension, which is hypertension as a result of an underlying, often reversible cause. Primary hypertension is basically genetics and lifestyle. Secondary causes of hypertension include coarctation of the aorta, pheochromocytoma, hyperaldosteronism, Cushing's syndrome, renal artery stenosis, chronic kidney disease, polycystic kidney disease, nephritic and nephrotic syndrome, obstructive uropathy, hyperthyroidism, and hyperparathyroidism. There's also sleep apnea, chronic alcohol use, use of oral contraceptives, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, illicit drugs such as cocaine or methamphetamine, and preeclampsia in females. So those, again, were some causes of secondary hypertension. The pathological vascular changes that occur in hypertension occur slowly. Normal vessels have good blood flow. However, in hypertension, and as hypertension progresses, there is vascular changes, remodeling, and hypertrophy. In the early stages, you begin to have plaque buildup and thickening of the vessel wall. And in the late stage, you get even more plaque buildup due to the dysfunction of the endothelial vascular wall. And you also get hypertrophy. All these changes result in narrowing of the lumen and buildup in vascular pressure, resulting in or aggravating hypertension. These vascular changes can eventually result in end organ damage, which includes stroke, retinopathy, transient ischemic attack, left ventricular hypertrophy, cardiac failure, and renal failure. Some investigations that should be performed in a patient with hypertension include ECG or electrocardiogram to check for cardiac function, urinalysis for renal function, and serology tests such as plasma renin, plasma aldosterone, the thyroid function test, and full blood count to rule out other differentials and to monitor hypertension. Management of hypertension include exercise, reducing salt intake, being on a proper diet, limit alcohol intake, smoking cessation, and use of antihypertensives such as ACE inhibitors.
Hypertension is a risk factor for developing coronary heart disease, myocardial infarction, or cardiovascular disease. And that, again, is a blood pressure greater than 140/90 for those over the age of 60, or greater than or equal to 150/90 over the age of 60. Okay, so again, the numbers go up as you get older. All right. Risk factors, again, family history, obesity, sedentary lifestyle, hyperlipidemia, which means too much triglyceride and cholesterol in the blood. High sodium. Why? Because the sodium in the blood pulls water into the blood, and that causes the blood volume and the blood pressure to go up. Low potassium intake, excess alcohol consumption, stress and aging. What are some risk factors? African Americans have the highest incidence. Women's risk increases after menopause, and that's due primarily to the reduction in estrogen production. Okay. So what do we do in terms of nutrition to control this? Well, the DASH diet, right? It's proven to lower blood pressure and cholesterol. You want to decrease sodium intake to 2.3 grams a day and gradually to 1.5 grams for your maximum benefit. Lower the intake of pretzels, canned soup, and processed foods because they're all high in sodium. Add low-fat dairy to promote calcium intake, and include fruits and vegetables that are high in potassium. You want to limit alcohol, and you want to encourage the patient to read labels so that they can make the appropriate food choices. You want to promote an increase in exercise. You want to promote weight loss, and you want to stop smoking. So you can see some examples of information regarding the DASH diet and the TLC diet here, okay? Let's look at heart failure.
Despite ongoing advances in the management of chronic heart failure, patient outcomes for acutely decompensated disease have not improved. Across Canada, patients hospitalized for heart failure continue to suffer frequent complications, and 16.5% die during their initial hospitalization. An examination of the pathophysiology of acute decompensated heart failure identifies promising new avenues for treatment. During heart failure, the heart cannot circulate enough blood at normal cardiac filling pressures to meet the metabolic needs of the brain, kidneys, heart, and other vital organs. The body responds by releasing neurohormones. Certain neurohormones help maintain blood pressure, but over time, they cause heart failure to worsen. One of these neurohormones is renin, released by the kidneys in response to decreased perfusion and increased sympathetic activity. Renin activates the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or RAAS, by cleaving angiotensinogen in the liver to produce angiotensin 1, which is further converted to angiotensin 2 in the lungs. Angiotensin 2 binds to blood vessel walls, causing vasoconstriction. Angiotensin 2 also stimulates release of endothelin from endothelial cells. Angiotensin 2 and endothelin act on vascular smooth muscle, causing constriction of the coronary arteries and systemic arteries and veins. While vasoconstriction helps maintain blood pressure, it can also have maladaptive effects. For example, the weakened heart must pump harder against increased resistance in the systemic arteries, while constriction of the coronary arteries further compromises the myocardium's supply of oxygen. Venous constriction also contributes to displacement of fluid into the lungs and other tissues. Angiotensin 2 stimulates the adrenal glands to release aldosterone. Aldosterone causes the kidneys to reabsorb sodium into the bloodstream. Sodium and water retention cause a state of fluid overload that is exacerbated by venous constriction. Gaseous exchange in the lungs is inhibited by pulmonary edema. Buildup of fluid in and around the lungs increases the physical work of breathing. Patients with acute left-sided heart failure feel short of breath and fatigued. When right-sided heart failure occurs, fluid accumulates in the liver and legs. Apart from the activity of the RAAS, the body tries to maintain blood pressure using other mechanisms, such as releasing epinephrine from the adrenal glands and norepinephrine from sympathetic nerve endings. These catecholamines increase heart rate and contractility, in addition to causing arterial and venous constriction. Over time, chronic volume overload and the activity of angiotensin 2, aldosterone, and endothelin stimulate pathologic cardiac remodeling. The interstitial fibrosis and myocyte apoptosis associated with cardiac remodeling decrease heart wall elasticity, further inhibiting the heart's ability to relax and pump effectively. In summary, the neurohormonal response to heart failure causes vasoconstriction, fluid retention, and increased heart rate and contractility. In turn, these processes initiate a vicious cycle of further myocardial injury and escalating heart failure. Fortunately, additional neurohormonal responses modulate the activity of the RAAS, endothelin, epinephrine, and norepinephrine.
So the bottom line, when the heart isn't pumping blood, is that the body tries to get the blood pressure back up in order to get blood into the tissues and keep them alive. And when it does that, you start to collect fluid in the tissues and you start to increase the resistance against which the heart has to work. And that puts a strain on the heart, and the heart ends up, first of all, getting big, swelling up, and then over time it can scar, and it can eventually result in congestive heart failure, right? So everything gets completely cut off, okay?
Or providers, please press 6. To schedule, cancel, or obtain information about an appointment, press 1. For a new patient appointment, press 1.
Okay.
For an established patient
All right.
appointment.
So how do we deal this? How do we deal with this from a dietary standpoint, right? The heart can't maintain adequate blood flow through the body. You get excess sodium and fluid retention and edema. The tissues begin to swell up. When they do, it's harder to get blood to flow through those areas. The risk factors: hypertension, diabetes mellitus, previous heart attacks and arrhythmias, valve disorders, obesity, metabolic syndrome, okay, or a collection of any of those. We want to reduce sodium to 2,000 milligrams a day or less. That's the same as 2 grams a day, right? You want whole milk limited or replaced by low sodium. You want the water content in everything that you consume to be checked, right? Because you're going to take on fluid. You can allow selected vegetables, processed foods and condiments. You might want to eliminate them if you can. Sodium per serving. Remember that sodium free is less than 5 milligrams, low sodium less than 35, and very low sodium less than 35, and low sodium less than 140. So you want to consider that when you're trying to restrict the sodium in the total diet. We want to monitor the fluid intake and restrict it to 2 liters a day, because we don't want fluid to build up in the body and put an additional strain on the heart, right? And increase the blood pressure even further. We want to increase protein to 1.12 grams per kilogram of body weight, right? So if you weighed 100 kilograms, that would be 112 grams of protein, right? And then you want small, frequent meals that are soft and easy to chew, okay? All right, so let's take a look at a heart attack. What's involved?
Cardiac compromise is a blanket term that refers to many kinds of problems with the heart. Just as there are many problems, there are a wide variety of signs and symptoms associated with these heart problems. As an EMT, it is much safer to treat all patients as though they are having a heart problem, rather than diagnose the specific disorder. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at 5 of the most common heart conditions. Coronary artery disease. Coronary artery disease occurs when the coronary arteries are narrowed or blocked, reducing the amount of oxygen delivered to the heart. 2 conditions, atherosclerosis and arteriosclerosis, commonly cause the narrowing or blockage of arteries. Atherosclerosis is a buildup of fatty deposits on the inner walls of arteries. This buildup causes a narrowing of the inner vessel diameter, restricting blood flow. Fats and other particles combine to form plaque. Arteriosclerosis is a stiffening or hardening of the artery wall resulting from calcium deposits. Often called hardening of the arteries, this condition causes the loss of elasticity, changing blood flow and increasing blood pressure. These conditions can facilitate rough surfaces, making them vulnerable to blockages. A large thrombus can cause an occlusion, or it may break loose to become an embolism and form blockages elsewhere. When blockage occurs, tissues may die, and in certain cases, this can be fatal. Acute myocardial infarction. Acute myocardial infarction occurs when a portion of the myocardium, heart muscle, dies as a result of oxygen starvation. The dead area can no longer pump. This can lead to cardiac arrest, shock, pulmonary edema, or congestive heart failure. In some cases, heart attack patients suffer cardiac rupture as the dead tissue area of the heart muscle bursts open. Medications called thrombolytics dissolve clots that block coronary arteries. Other patients receive an angioplasty, a balloon device to open the arteries. Aneurysms. Weak spots that dilate are known as aneurysms. When a weakened artery bursts, rapid internal bleeding occurs and tissues beyond the rupture can be damaged. A rupture of an artery within the brain can result in a severe stroke. If a major artery ruptures, death from shock can occur. Arrhythmia. A malfunction of the heart's electrical system will generally result in an arrhythmia. Electrical disturbances within the heart result in arrhythmias, including bradycardia, abnormally slow, less than 60 beats per minute, tachycardia, greater than 100 beats per minute, or rhythms that are present when there is no pulse, including ventricular fibrillation, ventricular tachycardia, pulseless electrical activity, and asystole. Congestive heart failure, CHF. Congestive heart failure, CHF, is a condition of excessive fluid buildup in the lungs and other organs because of inadequate pumping of the heart or a failure of the lungs to function properly. Congestive heart failure can be caused by diseased heart valves, hypertension, or some form of obstructive pulmonary disease. The symptoms of CHF may include tachycardia, shortness of breath, elevated blood pressure, cyanosis, profuse sweating, cool and clammy skin, pulmonary edema, pedal edema, or the coughing up of frothy white or pink sputum. Late signs include engorged pulsating neck veins or enlarged liver and spleen with abdominal distension.
Cardiovascular disease can manifest as myocardial infarction. There is an inadequate blood supply, which means low oxygen to the myocardium. This can be the result either of a burst blood vessel or a blocked blood vessel. Atherosclerosis means that the blood vessel is likely narrowed or blocked. After an MI, you have to reduce myocardial oxygen demand related to metabolic activity. Translate that as you need to take it easy. Risk factors are the same as for coronary heart disease. And so what do we do in terms of nutrition? Liquid diet for the first 24 hours, no caffeine because that's a stimulant. That's going to promote a rapid heart rate. Small, frequent meals, and then talk to the client about recommendations for a heart healthy diet, okay, such as the DASH diet. Again, basically what? Reduce sodium intake, increase potassium intake, reduce saturated fat, reduce cholesterol intake, okay? Avoid tobacco, avoid nicotine in any form, okay? Cut down on alcohol consumption, all right? All of this is going to promote a heart healthy diet. And then when you cook, you want to cook with unsaturated fats, all right? So you can use polyunsaturated fats such as sunflower oil, okay? And you can cut your cholesterol by reducing the amount of fat in your meat and your dairy. So you can have low-fat milk or no-fat milk. You can have lean meat, okay? Increase the amount of fish that you consume because, again, that's considered a lean protein source. And the oils in fish and the fats in fish are unsaturated, right? So they have fewer calories, and that means less of a strain on your heart, okay? Okay. What I'm going to send you guys after we're done is obviously the link to the lecture, which will start loading up when we're finished here. but I'm also going to send you the PDFs for the 2 books that I put on Google Bookshelf. Apparently, even though they're on the public bookshelf, you have to pay for them, which is kind of strange for a public bookshelf. So I'm going to get you guys the PDFs for that. And then I'm going to get you guys sort of a guide for filling out the homework, but also a practice exam to get you ready for the first actual exam. And the practice exam will have a key with it. And you don't want to look at the key first. You want to study your material first. And then when you've got everything basically in your head the way you want, like you're going to take a real test, take the exam and see how you do. Okay. And then compare that to the key, see how you do on the key. And then anything you miss, try and find it in the notes, in the textbooks, or in the lecture. And if you can't find it there, that's when you email me or call me during my office hours, 5 to 7 on Friday, and we can talk about anything that's confusing to you, okay? If you call me between 5 and 7 on Friday and you don't immediately get me picked up, leave a message, leave a voicemail, because sometimes it, for some reason, sends stuff straight to voicemail instead of ringing. And I'm not sure quite why that is on my phone. And remember that my phone number is in the syllabus, but it's 513-335-1150. Okay. All right. That brings us to the end for today. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before we bump out? Are we cool?
Is the exam over just the first week or this week too? Practice exam.
Yeah, both weeks.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so it's going to be carbs, fats, proteins, and cardiovascular. Yeah. All right. See y'all next Thursday.